Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is 5:30 in the morning on a Tuesday morning. I am recording. 5:30 in the morning on a Tuesday morning is when we pull a toy out of the toy box and we draw it, a random object out of the Random Object Randomogrifier. We're going to talk about it and tell stories about its nature, its history, and its science because I love nature, history, and science. Let's spritz these watercolors real quick so they're creamy later on, nice and juicy, moist, so that when I go to use them later on, I can just tap into them and not scrub into them. Today's random object from the Random Object Randomogrifier is a snail. And I love drawing snails. I don't know why I love drawing snails. Snails and frogs and creepy crawlies, I absolutely love to draw them. So, a couple of things. Uh, it's nice that I get to draw a snail today because that's very relaxing. But I honestly think my little girl who pulls the eggs for me when she's here, she knows she wasn't here for a couple of days, but when she's here, she pulls the eggs for me. And I honestly think she pulled this one out and said, no, that's a Tuesday drawing. Because on Tuesdays, she knows I have to go to work early. And I think she said, this lacks detail. And so it's perfect for a Tuesday. And she's right. But you may notice as the cameras rotate that I like to draw snails. Have a few other snail drawings. So it's not just that it's Tuesday and I need something that I can get done quickly, but it's also that I just love to draw snails. I found this kit on Amazon. This isn't Safari, though it's detailed enough. It could have been Safari. This isn't Safari. I found this kit on Amazon. This and some mushrooms that they're just resin models and they're just so well done. I mean, you could set this out in the garden and people would put poison out. This is such a well done model. The coloring is good. The coloring is good enough that we were able to run it through Google Images and identify that it is a garden snail, that it is I wrote down the scientific name, but it's not really that important because and it's there's only two types of garden snails that are really popular, and this is one of them. But I did write its scientific name. I did learn its scientific name yesterday. Learn. I can't say I learned it. If I learned it, I'd still retain it. It's a snail. My mom's in my ear saying it's a snail. Yeah, it's a snail. What is it? Snail. You know what kind of snail it is? Snail. The garden variety. Common garden variety snail. Gastropods. Snails are gastropods. That means stomach-footed. Gastropods emerged during the Cambrian about 500 million years ago. my mother is ranting. So I'd call my mom in the morning. For those of you who've not been to the show in a while, I call my mom in the morning and I put her in my Bluetooth earpiece and she talks to me and tells me things like, hey, look at the chat, somebody's asking a question. Hey, your cameras aren't rotating. Hey, snails eat my flowers. They're not my friend. Yeah, she's over there trying to make me laugh. And it's working because I love her. Anyway, gastropods emerged from the Cambrian about 500 million years ago. And snails deviated from them not very quickly after, not very long after. It's like 480 million years ago is when the snails deviated from the rest of the gastropods, the rest of the mollusks rather, and that that separates snails from clams. Snails and clams and octopus and all of those are in the same general family that came up during the Cambrian, but snails separated before the rest of them. Snails, before all of the rest of them, snails separated out. And yeah, there's really not a whole lot of detail to draw there. So 300 to 400 million years ago is when they invaded my mother's garden. That is when they came from the ocean to the land. That is when we have the first evidence of it. Probably somewhere around the Mediterranean. And, you know, snails are not fast-moving things. I don't know if you ever actually watched a snail. I mean, they're not, when you watch a snail, they're not really all that slow, but they're certainly not one would call fast. They're not like Turbo in that Disney movie. That snail's fast. They're not at all like that for sure. And it's difficult to comprehend that this particular snail is all around the world. It's on every continent except Antarctica. And you know, they're not good swimmers. They have a portion of their shell, a portion of their body that they've pushed inside their shell that they've modified into a lung, as opposed to gills that allows them to capitalize on food that's on the land instead of in the water. They make slime to coat themselves with. It's not slime, it is mucus. No, this is slime. They make slime to coat themselves with to prevent water loss on land. Ew, my mom said, ew. Yes, they are nocturnal. My mom says, are they nocturnal? But they make slime to prevent water loss on land, and what was I even talking about? But then, so these things came out. This particular species though is believed to have evolved in the Mediterranean, and so they don't swim. That's what I was going on about. They have lungs. They have a modified lung, so they don't have gills anymore. They can't swim. How did they get from the Mediterranean to my mother's garden? And the answer is food. The Romans ate them and would carry them around with them in little satchels, and sometimes they would have eggs, and they would sometimes the eggs, the snails would have eggs that would end up in the area that the Romans were, and the eggs would hatch, and now there'd be snails there. And the Romans did it, and the French did it, obviously. And that brought them into Europe. That brought them into Europe, and that eventually brought them to the United States and to Canada and South America, and all across, of course, Asia. You know, we like to pretend that Asia is different, but Asia is actually touching Africa is actually touching the Indo-European continent. So it's fun to pretend like they're a completely different area, but they're touching. So it makes sense that land things could move from there to the other places. But it's that jump across the ocean. It's that jump to Australia. It's that jump to Hawaii. You know, they brought snails into Hawaii as a food source, and then the snails started killing off the other plants and stuff that they had there. So they brought something else in to eat the snails, and then that became a pest. And they brought something else to eat those snails, and then that became a pest. And you would think that they would learn, you know, you can't just introduce strange animals into an area. You would think they would learn you can't just introduce strange animals into an area and expect them and not expect them to overtake the area and cause problems. But no, they're still doing it today. They still do dumb stuff like say, you know what, these Chinese goldfish are adept at eating these Chinese mollusks that are invading our sea waters. Let's our fishing waters. Let's bring these goldfish in, and then the goldfish outcompete everything. They still do it today. It's crazy. So these snails are everywhere. They bring these snails. They have little escargot farms, and and you know, the snails escape. The snails escape. And make a break for it. Okay, you distract the birds. What? Snails escape. But as funny as that sounds, to me anyway, it sounds hilarious. As funny as that sounds, what's every bit as likely is the birds land and eat the snails, but pick up some eggs on their feet. Birds and frogs and beetles and lizards, all kinds of things eat snails. And so when you have snails, you attract those other animals. But snail eggs are sticky, and they'll stick to the bird's feet. They'll go through the bird's gullet, not get digested. They'll make it all the way out and into the bird poop and get deposited out in the middle of nowhere, and then all of a sudden you've got snails there. And, you know, 1,000 miles away, that when the snails hatch, they're like, Mom, you know, have no idea where they are. Mom, and start looking around for Mom, and she's not anywhere to be found. Most snails, well, let's say it that way. Most snails are hermaphrodites, which means they're born with both male and female mating parts. Some snails have what that means is that when they come in together to mate, they both come in to mate, they both go away pregnant. And there's a joke with the amount of snails there are out there. There's a joke that says if you have 2 snails mating, you'll have 4 pregnant snails by the end of the session, because they breed that fast. We always used to say they're born pregnant. We said that about cats too. They're born pregnant. But because they just seem to breed that fast. They're just little slimy rabbits. Because when you're a hermaphrodite and your partner, any partner you encounter, you don't have to determine their sex, because they are already potentially a mate, just if they're willing. You don't have to worry about whether or not they're a potential mate. You just have to worry about if they're willing. And so in most species, they just come up against each other and go away pregnant. Both of them. Some species have a love dart. And I I love saying that. Some species have a love dart, and it's a hard dart that one snail will launch into the other snail, and the first one to launch the love dart gets to be the male, because it causes the other snail to be docile. Hi, Claudia. Hermaphrodite, because you eat them. So some snails have a love dart. They'll fire this love dart into their potential mate, and the first one to fire the dart gets to be the boy. The other one gets to be pregnant. That's just some species. Most species are just hermaphrodites, and they just both go away pregnant. They bury their eggs in little shallow graves, and they rise like zombies. All right. Let's see. I think I can just go. No, let me dry that real quick. I want to make sure that that doesn't pick up and spread when I come back with the yellow, because I started with the Payne's gray. This trips Ivy out, but because I started with the Payne's gray, sometimes I want to make sure I don't pick it up with the yellow. You should start with the yellow, but I like to start with the grisaille first. Yeah, Claudia says, is Ivy here? Or no, she's just saying Ivy because I'm running the hairdryer. Claudia says she used to have, in the chat, she's saying she used to have a bunch of snails as pets. Maybe she could enlighten us how fast they breed, because it's said in the literature that I was reading last night that you can outbreed a tank really quick if you're not careful. If you provide the right resources, they'll outbreed a tank very quickly. Do 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 do. Yeah, so they're very prolific when they breed. Their eggs are sticky. If they're not buried, they'll stick to anything. They'll stick to birds' feet. They'll pass through the bird's gullet, uh, and you'll end up with eggs 1,000 miles away, and all of a sudden you've got more snails than you can shake a stick at. That is way too dark. I need more water. There we go. That's much better. All of a sudden you'll have more snails than you can shake a stick at everywhere you look. They're mostly, from my perspective, they're mostly good for the garden. Because in my perspective, I like the creepy crawly things. I like the things that do the natural aeration. I like the things they remove detritus from your garden. Um, they eat mold. They eat, they're just little garbage collectors. They eat the mold. They eat the detritus. They eat the dead leaves. But when they get hungry, they'll also eat the live leaves. And that's the part that my mother doesn't like. Because they're not, they're not called brain feed. They're called stomach feed. They're gastropods. They're not cerebropods. They're gastropods. And so they're just little traveling stomachs with little rasping tongues. And so they don't slime around going, "Oh, I should avoid these strawberries. The humans will get mad." Which, if they could just do that, nobody would worry about them at all. They're invasive. In the United States, they're considered invasive, but nobody cares because they're cool looking. She said they breed very fast. Claudia says they breed very fast, and she had a lot of them very quickly. I'm glad to see Claudia. I haven't seen Claudia in a couple of days. Ivy's going to be upset she missed it because we did the hair dryer twice. I met a couple of people in real life. Anna and Nikki, who subscribed to the channel. So if you guys are watching, shout out to you. They're my very interesting friends that I meet in the real world. And if you're new here, give us a shout out in the comments so we can say hi to you. And if you have any information about snails, we'd love to hear it. That's what we do here. We draw and we learn things. What was the subtle hint? Sorry, it was too subtle. Oh yeah, and mac and cheese. Mac and cheese is my adopted granddaughter. Mac and cheese and Unique with Chantiel LaFontaine is my Unique with Chantiel LaFontaine is my granddaughter. Mac and cheese macaroon is my adopted granddaughter, and they're watching. So shout out to them. Trixie Lou Who Marzipan Moon Pie may be watching. If she's watching, that's exciting. I don't think Fred's watching. I don't think Fred sits still for television very well. He's my grandson. But yeah, again, if you're watching, I'd love to hear from you. Also, and I know you're not supposed to give people multiple things to do because it's hard enough for people to remember to do one. But if you decide to draw along, I've seen Claudia drawing little tiki dolls and posting them on her community page. If you decide to draw along, I post all these pictures on my community page. If you go back, there's about 100 still lifes on my community page that you can go back and you can draw any one of them, and I would love to see your rendition of it. What is today? Today is the 29th. I would love for you to share. For instance, if you drew this snail, I would love for you to share so that I could see it and share it with everybody else. But the good thing about snails in your garden is that they aerate your garden. They eat the detritus. They eat the dead and dying leaves. And they attract birds and frogs, and so that's kind of nice. They make your garden. They fill your garden up with life and excitement. The bad thing is, as my mom is pointing out, is that they eat everything they land on. And so it's not necessarily good for your garden. They leave little slime trails. They'll make your lettuce leaves look bad. They leave little chew marks and dirty little slime marks that attract dirt. And so if you want a little pristine ornamental garden, or if you're growing a food garden, they're probably not the best thing for you. But if all you want is a garden to sit and look at and enjoy the nature of it, they're a nice addition. I wouldn't go out and find them. I'm pretty sure they'll turn up on their own. But if they do turn up on their own, you take them, you scoop them out of the shell, and you bake them, and you add some butter and garlic, and maybe some chives, and you take the little baked thing and you clean the shell out really well. You clip on the snail, you clip the stomach part off the end. You clean the shell out really well. You put the snail back in the shell, and you put the butter and the garlic and stuff back in there, and you set it back in there. Anyway, if you get that chance. So, okay, so here is my version of that snail. So let's see if we can get it here from, let me see here if I can remember to turn my mic off and take it off without losing the magnet, which I already did. All right, so there's that. And then we can safely eject this camera, stop recording, safely eject, and that way, because I don't have a better system yet. I found another phone. It was one of my dad's old phones. I found another phone I could take pictures with, but it complicates how to get things to Instagram. So Mom says, no, I'm not going to eat them, just going to move them along. So here is the snail from my perspective. The phone is dark. Here is the snail from my perspective. And like I said, I love drawing snails. You may not have noticed. You may not have noticed the snail over there, right? Or maybe you may not have noticed the snails over here. I do very much like to draw snails. But guys, that's what I did today. The little girl has pulled a canister for me tomorrow. Let's see what the canister is for tomorrow. It is a World War I radio man. Maybe World War II. I think we talked about this before. I believe it's World War II. So it's a World War II radio man. We'll find out, because I'll find out when they started using that type of radio. That is a very big radio pack, but it would be very small. That would be considered a very small radio in World War I times. So this may very well be a World War II. We'll find out. It's one of the things we'll talk about tomorrow. But if you're watching this on Wednesday, the 30th of July, but you're watching this and it's before 5:30 in the morning, then you're watching the trailer, and this is what we're about to draw. So stick around. We'll get right on it. But for the rest of us, this is what we're doing tomorrow. And so I want to thank you all so very much. Got an 8.5 out of 10 on my snail. Claudia is giving me a score, so do my little Olympic stance to say that I got my 8.5 out of 10. She's holding up cards. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I look forward to this every morning when I get to come down here and I get to art with my besties. I get to remain accountable to my art practice, and we get to learn a little something, have a little fun. So be sure and tune in tomorrow. Same Artistic Biker time, same Artistic Biker channel. And then we dance. We dance until somebody says they see me dancing. Because once they see me dancing, then I know the lag is caught up to the stream. And once the lag is caught up to the stream, I know it won't be cut